Welcome back. The 14th Brics Summit takes place tomorrow and Friday. President Cyril Ramaphosa is expected to attend the virtual meeting, which will be hosted by Chinese President Xi Jinping. Brazil, Russia, India and China are big trading partners with South Africa. Ramaphosa says the summit will further strengthen these ties in terms of growth and employment creation. Let's explore this with Daily Maverick Associate Editor Brics Spector. Mr. Spector, good morning and thank you very much for your time. You know, this summit will be a very interesting one, given Russia's invasion of the Ukraine, which has immensely contributed to this geopolitical shift that we've all been witnessing of stronger alliances in Europe, and also where we're seeing this fundamental change in global power politics. What do you honestly expect to top the agenda?
Well, let's be honest about it. Let's be bluntly honest. I've always been a bit of a skeptic on the very notion of BRICS as a viable organizational activity as opposed to a notional idea. And it's quite clear that the topic that will be utmost will be the Russian invasion of Ukraine and Russia's efforts to get its BRICS friends aligned behind it in some way, shape, or form. And you're already seeing India starting to murmur to the extent that, well, I don't know, I'm not sure, we're not clear on this, because remember, India is increasingly aligned with the United States in an informal, tacit alliance between Japan, Australia, the U.S., and India in the Southeast Asia, Pacific, and Indian Ocean region, even though a significant share of Indian military hardware is still purchased from Russia. The Chinese, on the other hand, will want to look a little more even-handed than the Russians would like, which leaves only really Brazil and South Africa as the wild cards in that particular game. The other issue, which will preoccupy many conversations, of course, is the dislocation in world trade that flows from the Russian invasion of Ukraine, both in foodstuffs as well as foodstuffs, edible oils, and fuel and fertilizer. And it is very difficult for the Russians to say, we had nothing to do with it, this is just a natural consequence of life. As a result, those two questions will overwhelm the discussion, even if they are not the final parts of the communique that may come out at the end of all this. And let's keep in mind, too, that BRICS as an organization doesn't actually have an organization. There's no secretariat. There's no formal mechanism for implementing anything.
You know, you eloquently put it when you place all of these five nations and say perhaps Russia as well as China, they possibly have more similarities insofar as their leadership style is even concerned. Then you have an India that might be looking to take a more neutral position, particularly the ties it now has and is more sympathetic to the US. Then you have Brazil and South Africa. South Africa, when you say we're the wild card, I mean, this is something that has been debated, our contribution in this whole formation or this group. It's always been debated given the size of our economy. I mean, these are trillions worth of economies, and we were just in 2019, 300 billion worth of an economy. So how much of a contribution or impact do we really have, or even a voice, a stronger voice?
Well, to be bluntly honest, not as much as some partisans within South Africa would like. I mean, South Africa was a late addition to this collection. And remember, the collection of nations itself really stemmed from a sales gimmick on the part of a government bond salesman who worked with Goldman Sachs Bank, Jim O'Neill. And it was his idea to bring the four countries together in terms of selling government bonds because they were all roughly at the same stage of economic growth, although obviously size were very different. China, Russia, Brazil, and India, very different in the nature of their economies as well. South Africa was a late add. And it's always been something of a notional idea here that South Africa has an important central role in all of this. If you look at pure economic terms, Indonesia, Mexico, Nigeria, South Korea, all could have been more logical candidates in pure economic terms, if not necessarily in geopolitical circumstances. So, to sum up, in effect, I don't expect major announcements. I expect to see communiques that are sketched out broadly in terms of we urge the members to do the following things in terms of greater understanding and communication and efforts to improve trade. But keep in mind, too, that for South Africa, the majority of its trade is still with, if you bring them together, with the United States, with Western Europe, rather than with any or all of the BRICS nations put together. As a result, it's an interesting event. We'll follow it, but I don't expect to see landmark decision-making and landmark activities coming out of it.
Mm-hmm. If you perhaps had the ear of the president, what would you say would be perhaps areas of cooperation that we possibly should be proposing on the table, that perhaps we've overlooked now insofar as the other 4 countries are concerned? Which would be that area of cooperation that you think perhaps you need to capitalize on this?
Well, the thing that should concern us all, of course, is the growing difficulties and circumstances of food exports, grain and edible oils and fertilizers from Ukraine and to some degree Russia to the rest of the world, because there's a looming food crisis in the Middle East, parts of South Asia, and significant portions of Africa, precisely because of the war. And it would be, in my estimation, although I'm not entirely sure President Ramaphosa will listen to my suggestion, it'd be my encouragement to say we need to, as a grouping, make it clear that food exports, that grain exports from Ukraine should be allowed because of the grave danger it poses otherwise to places, as I say, in the Middle East and many parts of Africa. I don't think that's actually going to happen. I think the president will take a much more cautious approach.
All right. Mr. Brics, thank you very much for your insights. That's Brooks Spector, Daily Maverick Associate Editor, and definitely he would listen to you. I believe it.